Welcome to the Christian Illusionist video show. It's time for some colorful, magical fun. My sleeves are all rolled up. I'm ready to go. I said to myself, I believe I know what people would like to see. They would like to see the famous green handkerchief trick. Would you like to see the famous green handkerchief trick? I thought so. The problem is I don't have a green handkerchief. You see, you cannot do the green handkerchief trick unless you have a green handkerchief. What's that? You think this looks like... That's interesting. That person believes this looks like a green handkerchief. Someone over there does as well. It's amazing how many people believe this looks like a green handkerchief when actually it's a big red and white candy cane. Folks, you can't do a green handkerchief trick with a candy cane. So I guess I'll have to show you something else. How about the famous red handkerchief trick? I would love to show you the red handkerchief trick, but unfortunately, as in the case with the green handkerchief, I forgot to bring my red handkerchief. Yes, I forgot this. I know. This sort of looks like a red handkerchief. In fact, sometimes people say, Dwayne, I believe that is a red handkerchief. And it always amazes me that they would say that when so clearly it is a white handkerchief. And folks, you cannot do the red handkerchief trick with a white handkerchief. So what a disappointment. Oh, if only I had remembered to bring the red handkerchief. But of course, if I had remembered to bring a red handkerchief, well, if I'd remembered it, it would have looked like this. This is what a red handkerchief looks like. But as you can see, I forgot to bring the red handkerchief. So you say, well, Dwayne, what would you have done if you had remembered your red handkerchief? Well, if I'd remembered to bring my red handkerchief, I would have tucked it into my hand like this. And once I had it in my hand, I would have squeezed it tight so it can't get away. Then I would have tapped it with a wand like that. And it would have completely disappeared, and the crowd would have gone crazy with applause. And then while they were applauding, the wand itself would have turned into two red and white handkerchiefs, and the crowd would have been even more excited yet. That's what I would have done if I had remembered the green handkerchief or the red handkerchief. Well, maybe I did remember the green handkerchief, and maybe I did remember the red handkerchief, and maybe what we just saw was a demonstration of sleight of hand, also known as illusions. And now let's talk about what it means to be a Christian illusionist. I am Dwayne Laughlin, and I am a Christian illusionist. The word Christian means I know Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior. I am a believer. I am committed to living for Jesus Christ. Illusionist means I specialize in things that surprise the eyes and challenge the mind. And I want to make it clear that when I talk about illusions, I'm not talking about anything that is spooky, that has something to do with dark arts or secret powers or anything like that. No. When I'm talking about illusions, I'm literally talking about things that are mystifying in a natural way. Have you ever stopped to consider the fact that God Himself is the author of illusions? God made the chameleon. A chameleon blends into its surroundings, so it looks like it's not there when it is there. Now, by the way, there's nothing in the box. You can see that. I'm making that clear. I'm just talking about the chameleon. It blends in, and it looks like it isn't there, but it is there, and God made it. God gave it that ability to be camouflaged, to look like it is what it isn't, or it isn't what it is. There is a bug in nature known as the praying mantis. A praying mantis looks like a stick, but it's a bug. God made it that way. It's a living illusion. There are many illusions in nature, and there are principles of science and physics that boggle our minds. So what I do as an illusionist is I study these principles, God's principles, from science and physics and nature, and I turn them into things that are fun and things from which we can learn. For example, I've been showing you these boxes, and I have, as you see, a tennis ball and a block. So what we do is we take the block, and it's just like a child's toy. You can see the letters of the alphabet, a red block with white letters on it. It goes into this little box that also looks like it came from a child's toy box, just a little toy. Over here we have the tennis ball, and don't forget now, the block went in there, the tennis ball goes into here. So the challenge is to cause the ball and the block to change places. Mysteriously, the tennis ball goes over there and the block goes over there. I believe it happened. Let me check. Oh, look, the block is in the big box and let me check, the ball is in the small box. Isn't that amazing? Then I will make them go back to their original places. So just like this, the block goes from the big box back to this box, and the ball goes from here back to here. Let me check. The ball is right here. Isn't that amazing? The block is right here. Astonishing. Well, you're not so impressed. Maybe you don't think they actually did change places. And of course, it would be very, very difficult to get them to change places, to make the ball to go over there and the block to go over here. It would be extremely difficult. And if I did it, it would truly be an illusion. Actually, I think it might be a pretty good illusion. Because wouldn't it be amazing if now, when we look inside this box, we see a red block with white letters on it. A red block with white letters in this box. And nothing else. And over here, sure enough, all we have in here is the tennis ball. An illusion. An amazing illusion. Something that surprises our mind, causes us to wonder, how did he do that? But there is a secret to it. Only God does real miracles. I do tricks and illusions. They're fun. They make us think. And there's a way to use them to make us think about things that are most important of all. And that's what's going to happen next. Here's a lesson that I've often used in church in the context of children's sermons. And I've also used it in lessons for the public in what you'd call a larger platform type of program. It's called, How Many Ways Are There to Heaven? And some might say, well, the answer's like this one rope. There's just one way to heaven. And by the way, that is what the Bible teaches. The book of Acts, the apostle said, there's no other name under heaven given among men whereby we must be saved, referring to the fact that Jesus Christ is the one and only way to heaven. But not everyone agrees with that. Some would say, well, it's more like the ends of the rope. There's got to be several ways to heaven, you know, your way and my way. And some say, well, there's all these different kinds of churches. So maybe there's a Baptist way to heaven, but maybe there could be a Catholic way to heaven. What if there's also a Lutheran way to heaven? What if there's also a Methodist way to heaven? You know, all kinds of different churches, all kinds of different ways to heaven, right? No, no, no. That's certainly not what the Bible teaches, and let's not get hung up on this denominational thing. Someone else says, well, I want to go back to just the fact that I think it's personal. We all can believe whatever we want. You know, see, this is like my own little helicopter blade. It'll just take me right up to heaven my own way, and you make your own little thing, and that'll take you up to heaven your way. We all do whatever we want to and believe in our hearts. That's not it. The Bible doesn't teach that. The Bible very clearly teaches that there's one and only one way to heaven, and that is through personal faith in Jesus Christ. In John chapter 14, verse 6, Jesus Christ was speaking. He said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father but by me. In other words, Jesus was saying there are not a lot of different ways to heaven. Forgive the bad joke, but it makes the point. This is a not, and there are not a lot of different ways to heaven. There are not a lot of ways to heaven. There's one way to heaven. And the one way to heaven is through knowing Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. That's the way we use an illusion to illustrate biblical truth. In the world of the magician or the illusionist, whatever you want to call him, nothing wrong with the term magician as long as you know it's just about tricks and things that puzzle the eyes. But anyway, in that world, there are big tricks, there are little tricks, there's all kinds of tricks. Mind-reading tricks, things that involve ladies on stage, maybe floating in the air, and of course there's close-up tricks. I do enjoy close-up tricks. Here's one called There Is an Answer. And strangely enough, at the start, you might say, well, I don't think there could possibly be an answer here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 cards. You can see that the backs are all the same, and you see that the fronts are all the same. You see 1, 2, 3, 4 blank cards. So, you say to yourself, how could there be an answer here? Now, I don't have anyone actually here in the studio to help make these choices, but please trust that if someone is here, this is exactly how it would work. I put the cards into 2 over here and 2 over here, and someone can choose. Do you want the left cards, the cards on your left, that would be your left and my right, or you want the cards on your right and my left? And let's say they want left. I say, okay, those are yours. That leaves us with 2 cards. We're going to name these last 2. This one will be this, and that one will be that. So do you want this or that? Just make a choice. Just say this is this, or that is that. What? You say that? Okay, that goes over there with the others, and we are left with this card. Now we're saying there is an answer. Let's look at the cards again. Remember, we began with 4 cards. White on the front, little fancy designs on the back. 1, 2, 3 cards are there. Looks like there is no answer. But you made a choice. And the card, this card that you selected, does show us that there is an answer after all, and that answer is Jesus Christ. He really is the answer to every big question in life. Now, in a mysterious way, I made this picture appear. But there should be no mysteries about what matters in life. You don't have to believe that there are no answers. There is a way to be happy. There is a way to have peace and joy. And it's all through knowing Jesus Christ. So, that's another trick that reminds us of the truth. To conclude this first episode of our Christian Illusionist video program, I'm going to use a piece of apparatus that is very familiar to magicians. It has been around for decades and decades and decades. And I will use it to illustrate an eternal truth. The truth has to do with priorities. In the Bible, 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 31 tells us that whatever we do, whether we eat or we drink, it's all to be done to the glory of God. So I have here, as you can see, a green ball, a yellow ball, and a red ball. And they're going to help us think about things in life that we have to deal with, things that we can make priorities, and the big question is, where do these things go on our priority list? Now here's a tube that goes over that clear tube that you can see, and the reason why I do this is you can't see in a person's heart. You can't necessarily see what their priorities are. Sometimes we even deceive ourselves about our priorities. For example, if the green ball represents money, we would say that belongs on the bottom of the stack. Money is the lowest of priorities. If the yellow ball represents friends, families, relationship, we say that certainly is more important than money. If the red ball represents our love for God, our relationship with God, we would say, well, that's number one. That's the highest priority. Whatever we do, we want to do it all for the glory of God. In everything, we want God to be first. That's what we say. But if we could see through that veneer, through this outer shell that is our physical life, into the heart, we might discover that what we say is not actually the way things are. As you can see here, the ball representing love for God has got pushed way down to the bottom, almost out of sight. Let's try it again. So that person says, well, I know what matters. I know what's important. Money is not the most important thing. It belongs down at the bottom. Friends and family, very important, but God is always number one. God is always the highest, most important thing in my life. We say that. But it's not always what we live. On the outside, we may act like that's the truth, but inside, things can be very different. Once again, our relationship with God has been shoved right down to the bottom. And there are times when the situation is even worse. Well, we always have to deal with money. It's always there in our lives in one way or another, and there's always these relationships. But sometimes God is entirely left out. And people say, no, He's not entirely left out because I go to church. That's right. You see me go to church, I'm there on a Sunday morning, and since I go to church, God is a priority, and everything's all right between me and God. Well, maybe you notice the front of this box. It's got a joker on it, because the truth is, going to church can be like a joke if what you're expressing on Sunday morning isn't what you're living the rest of the week. What happens Sunday morning is just part of your entire life. And the truth is, if you are living with God as the lowest priority, or almost no priority, the fact that you go to church doesn't change that. So here's what matters. Here's the challenge. To make sure God really is number one in our lives. And to those of you who are watching, maybe you're watching because you like the tricks. It's fun to be entertained by these things that surprise the eyes. But I really do hope you can say that God is number one in your life. that he's where he's supposed to be, that he is the top priority. Jesus was asked, what is the greatest commandment of all? And he answered, it's to love God with all your heart, your mind, your soul, and your strength. There's nothing in life more important than loving God and living for God. We can have fun with all kinds of things, and I do have fun in my life, but living for God, that's number one. Thanks for watching. Be sure to tune in next time. I'm Dwayne Thanks for watching. Be sure to tune in next time. I'm Dwayne Laughlin. Until we communicate again, let's keep on serving the Lord.